official communications are important. Whether we like it or not, we will have to communicate to various authorities and amongst ourselves for official purposes in a rather formal manner. By the way, I cannot see how many people are connected. This is different format than Zoom, so it doesn't tell me how many people are connected, and I can see very few faces. And I hate to speak to my computer, but then this is how it has to be. Dr. Punita, how many people are connected right
so about nearly 80 people are there.
That's a very large number. Any of you would have seen this movie Kagaz? अभी OTT platforms पे चल रही है. कागज देखी किसी ने? ट्रेलर देखा, चलो मैंने भी ट्रेलर ही देखा अभी, लेकिन देखनी है. But the gist of or the long and short of that movie is कि एक बार कागज ने कुछ कह दिया तो वही सच है, आप जो भी कहते रह जाओ. तो कागज में किसी बंदे को बोल दिया गया कि ये मर चुका, तो then this guy had to prove that he is not dead, he is actually alive, and so that is the importance of official communication. Once something comes on in print, in pen and paper, and it is accepted in an official documentation, then it's like पत्थर की लकीर. आप उसको refute जब तक नहीं करोगे तब तक that will stand, and not your own words. So that is the strength of official communication. If, God forbid, something wrong has been entered into your personal file, or something adverse has been entered into personal file, or for that matter, in a spur of moment, in a matter of rage, in a moment of rage, you said something to do, or you wrote something to somebody in an official capacity that can be shown to you many years later, and that can actually mar your career. So it is important that we all be aware of what is the right way of communicating in official capacity, and what are the various modalities in which we communicate. I'm certain all of you have done it. Perhaps many of you may not have thought about it in a systematic manner, but it's impossible to have gone through all your careers so far without having written an application for, say, a leave, an application for a grant, or any official communication. So this is what I would be addressing today. What is the need for our as doctors, as resident doctors and doctors in training? What need do we have for communicating in official capacity? Essentially, it is for administrative purposes, and these administrative purposes include your own requirements or your own necessities, like, as I said, for leave and for patient care. And there are various modalities or modes of communication we use. Most often we write letters. These may be inter-office memos or letters to outside world, to somebody else. They can be emails. We also, in current era, use social media for correspondence or communication. And that too is now an official communication. Even the courts of our country, they acknowledge social media as legal documents or legal correspondence or communication, with some bit of difference with official language, official letters. And of course, there is a whole lot of verbal or telephonic communication that too is part of official communication. It may not be recorded always, but it is nonetheless part of official communication or official correspondence. So let's first talk about administrative correspondence or communication done using letters. And as I said, these include inter-office memos or other letters. So here's an example. It is, of course, this letter is, I have blanked out some parts of it because there's no need for, or it doesn't really matter who's writing and to whom. But there are a number of things or number of needs that we fulfill by writing official letters. These letters may be written on your official letterhead or the institute's letterhead, or these may be on simple blank paper. If it is on blank paper, then it is a good idea that you write on the top left-hand side, or it doesn't matter, left-hand side or right, top and right-hand side, the person and designation, address, phone number, email of the person who is writing the letter, and then follow it with to whom it is being written to. There has to be a reference number or filing number, the date on which the letter is written, and the signatures, the name of the person who is signing it. If it is being copied to some other person, then all those informations. If there are any other enclosures, it has to list that. So there are various ways in which a letter can be written. These are some examples I am showing to you. For example, the first one that this is the one that is being projected on the screen right now is a certificate given out to somebody or a testimonial given to somebody. Of course, the basic things remain. When you are writing a letter or a certificate or testimonial, not necessarily aimed at or addressed to one individual or one authority, it can be left open to whomsoever it may concern or to whom it may concern. But most often you would write letters to a specific authority or a person. So again, you can use like this letter has been typed on a blank paper. So today we all use computers and we use various kinds of softwares to do our correspondence. So you can make your own template of the institute or the department or whatever organization you're representing or you're part of, and on the top of the paper your own name or whosoever is writing the letter. It is possible at times a group of people may be writing the letter, the reference number, filing reference number, because this is important. This is the number with which you would file your own letter in your files, and the recipient would file based on this number. So if at a later date, if you need to take out this letter or you have to refer to this letter in future correspondence, this is vital. This filing reference number, the date on which the letter was sent, person to whom you have addressed the letter, followed by a subject. A subject line is important. So unless you have provided a subject, it is difficult. The person who is receiving the letter would have to go through the entire letter to know why the letter has come to the person. However, if you have provided a subject line, which should be as crisp and concise as possible, why the context in which the letter is being written, this becomes like an instant source of information to the recipient, why the letter has come. Accordingly, the person may accord importance or urgency to this correspondence or communication. Followed by the text of the letter. There are a few things, I'm certain all of you have done it. Letters have to be courteous. They have to be neither using over flowery language or flattering language, but at the same time, even when you're writing to a subordinate or to somebody who you for some reason may not necessarily be according a lot of respect, yet the language has to be respectful and courteous. I'm sure all of you have written letters, and then you can address people with dear sir, dear madam, dear Mr., doctor, professor, so-and-so. And this is the basic courtesy you write to. Even when you're writing to a subordinate, this is, you provide the first sentence of, besides the subject, the first sentence of the letter should provide the context. For example, this is in continuation to our previous correspondence in this regard, or in continuation to our telephonic conversation, or for example, if you're writing as a parent to your child's teacher, or I mean, these are the kind of examples we all have learned about in letter writings, and followed by, in the end, appropriate salutation, appropriate kind of greeting. You do thank to the person whom you have written to. You use whatever kinds of things like yours sincerely or faithfully. For official correspondence, almost always you use sincerely yours or yours sincerely. In personal or rather semi-official correspondence, you write yours faithfully, followed by your own name, and then you sign. And if in case it has to be copied to some other people, you say CC or copy to, followed by enclosures. If you have enclosed any documents, you either spell them out or you can even say as above if those enclosures have been referred to in the main text. Now that is the kind of letter that you would write to an outside to an entity outside your own institution or organization. But within the organization, we often use what we call as inter-office memos. So inter-office memos are, for example, at SGPGI, we use this format. Most people use this format. It states inter-office on the top left-hand corner, followed by the filing reference number. In the first sentence, within the space underneath this reference, you write to whom the letter is addressed to, who's writing the letter from, the date, and the subject. If it is to be forwarded by an authority, it is to be sent through proper channel, you do write about that through proper channel or through head of department. And then if there is a reference to what you have done, if there's a past reference you're referring to, for example, a file number, or in this example, this was relating an intramural grant. So every intramural grant that we get has a reference number. So we provide that reference number in the correspondence. So immediately the person who's receiving the letter can refer to that particular resource and put everything in context. Combined with the subject line and the reference, the whole context is clear to the person who has received the letter. And then you write the main text of whatever you have to convey to the person you're writing to. And again, the salutations, thanking you, sincerely yours, your signatures, and then the name, enclosures, copy to whomsoever. So these are some of the examples. This is not the only way to write an official correspondence or a letter or inter-office memo. There may be a number of other ways of doing it. I'm not saying that, or not prescribing that this is the only way of doing it. So can I request Vikram to mute yourself? Because Vikram seems to be unmuted and the noise that we are all listening to is coming from that microphone. Vikram, you're speaking right now. Thank you. If you can mute yourself. Perhaps still not cognizant of that he is unmuted. Okay, let me go forward. Now, the next important mode that we use for communication or correspondence is emails. Again, the emails can be sent to outside world, to entities or individuals outside the institution, and they may be relating or they may be sent to anybody inside the institution, within the institution, and or to your own colleagues in the department, depending on what nature of or what is the kind of information you want to impart. You include those very details in your emails. Emails, comparing them to the official letters, are somewhat less formal modalities or modes of correspondence. Thank you for muting Vikram, Dr. Punita. So emails are somewhat less formal modes of correspondence. Nonetheless, these are equally legal, equally well documented forms of correspondence. Courts of law today, they acknowledge emails as legal correspondence, and if somebody has been informed about some event or some notice has been served through emails and it has not bounced back, it has the same validity as an official letter. So do not consider emails as a casual thing which you can disregard later on or disown later on. If you have written an email, it is your words documented in the electronic format, and you cannot dissociate yourself from something that you have written. So do be careful in terms of what you write through email or what you correspond through emails. Once again, as I said, these are somewhat lesser formal ways, but nonetheless, they have to be courteous. They have to follow the same decorum of correspondence as any letter you would do. So if you're writing to a colleague, to a superior or a teacher, or for example, the head of department, or to the executive registrar, so you would use appropriate salutations. Once again, I would say, do not use flowery, over-respectful kind of language, but the basic courtesies have to be followed. Dear sir, dear Mr. or Dr. so-and-so, whatever appropriate salutations, followed by crisp information or crisp message that you want to convey to that person. And again, sign up with any minor or not so formal salutations with best wishes, with kind regards, with warm regards, your name. Most emails that you send would have the date and time, and those details, they would automatically get reflected in the email. It is a good idea to have your signature. Now, I'm sure all of you have been using emails for some time. It is possible to prepare a signature which gets auto-populated at the bottom of your name. So the person who is receiving the email, say you have written an email to somebody for the first time, and that person may be left wondering whom has he received that email from. Your email ID may not reflect your full name. It may be like, there are people who like to use very strange kind of email IDs. Prince of Comma at yahoo.com, ICU expert at yahoo.com, or whatever. And then people may be left wondering who the person is who has sent me the email. And so this signature is important. So you may prepare a signature, and that should reflect the emails. If they have any attachments, they would certainly be reflected there. And as I said, these are documented forms of, or this is a documented, archived correspondence. For inter-office, if you have to exchange the email with the physical format of inter-office memo with an email, this is the kind of email that we often use. Again, an inter-office memo compared to a formal letter is somewhat lesser formal. Same way, the emails that you write to within your organization are not as formal as they are when you're writing to somebody outside your organization. And these are valid alternatives to inter-office memos. You can also write group emails. Now, again, when you have to write group emails, I think it is important that you be even more careful, because by sending out a burst of emails to a number of people, you stand a greater chance of erring or causing an error. If some information is being sent out to just one person, it is less of a problem to retrieve. If it is to be sent out to 60 odd people, if I just write an email and send to the entire faculty of the institute, which is possible by using a group email, and then something wrong is written in that email, it's very difficult to retrieve. So be very careful when you are sending out emails to groups or group email IDs. But nonetheless, these are official forms of correspondence. Now coming to social media. Now, in fact, this is something that we thought we should be addressing rather in greater detail, because today nobody is, I don't see or I can't imagine anyone who's not connected to the outside world through social media. There are any number of platforms available, but almost everybody is using one or the other format. Email, WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, Google groups and whatnot, Snapchat, any kinds of social media are available, and these are also possible formats or modes of correspondence for official purpose as well. We doctors, we use these social media platforms for education and professional practice, for sharing ideas and information, for debating health issues, even for our self-promotion in a positive way, and to keep up with current views and current events. For example, every morning our morning teaching programs, which are now currently being done through Zoom platform, we share the information of which journal club article is going to be presented or who's presenting a case this morning through a WhatsApp group. So again, this is an important official way of correspondence, and of course we share anecdotes and jokes for fun. So social media is relatively informal, much faster, and a fun way of correspondence, less troublesome, or it involves much lesser efforts to correspond or communicate via social media, but I feel it's a double-edged sword. The social media has a potential to blur the boundaries between professional and personal, and so it has a potential to blur the boundaries of official correspondence with personal or casual correspondence. You cannot be corresponding to some authorities in the same way as you would do to your childhood friend, with whom you would be very casual, and you can even be you can use not so parliamentary kind of ways of correspondence. So there are a number of issues which can arise, including official and ethical, if you use the social media rather unwisely or in a casual way. So while you're using social media for official correspondence, be very careful. And all these problems can be avoided by using your common sense and by following some guidance. So it is best that you use social media for personal correspondence as much as required, and use it for professional communication or official communication only to the extent it is essential and with utmost care. As I said, use your common sense and be guided by some framework of guidance or guidelines. There are any numbers of guidelines available. The Government of India, and just as all of the governments across the globe, have brought out guidelines for people to follow for following or for appropriately corresponding through social media in official capacity. You need to, as a doctor, you would always be seen as a doctor so whatever views you share on social media would always be considered your professional views. You cannot disown or you cannot dissociate yourself from a comment that you made on social media. So be very careful on what you share on social media. Ultimately, it is your responsibility forever, both in terms of the ethical contents or ethics of your contents shared, the morality of the content shared, and the legal standards. And then if you shared something which crosses the boundaries of ethical conduct, moral conduct, and legal standards, you would be hauled up. You are likely to be, or you are liable to be hauled up by regulators, including the National Medical Council. So all the professional expectations of the society and peers that you have to follow in your daily life, they are equally to be kept in mind while corresponding through social media. The respect for patients, for the colleagues, for any authority. So it's important that we take a very cautious approach to anything that you think can have an effect or may have a bearing on your professional standing. Think very carefully before you share anything on social media. As I said, there is a great likelihood that if you shared something which can be linked back to you at a later date, you may repent sharing something. So do not fall for sharing anything casually on social media. I feel this golden rule of not posting while being angry, drunk, or emotional is important. Don't say or reveal anything on social media that you would not be happy to see printed in a newspaper or in a formal letter. The right to free speech is not an absolute one. It comes with a lot of restrictions. It comes with a lot of self-control. The defamation law applies online as well. So whatever you may communicate or correspond online through emails or through social media can also be challenged in court of law, and then you can be held liable. You must avoid unsubstantiated adverse comments about individuals or organizations. Of course, if you have a real reason to be complaining about something or someone, and you have a documentary proof to back it, then certainly you can go ahead and do it. But otherwise, refrain from making adverse comments on anybody or any organization. Another important aspect of use of social media is providing medical advice on social media. Until maybe a year ago or so, it was almost a rule that you would not impart medical advice on social media. But today, because of the pandemic situation, the government allows, or the regulators, they allow even prescriptions to be shared on social media. And these are legal documents. The patient can take an electronic prescription shared through social media to a pharmacy and get prescription drugs. But wherever you are doing it, be very cautious in the way that this is a dangerous kind of a format. It can be made viral. It can be shared widely by somebody who may not like your advice. So you must do as a doctor to identify yourself, not anonymously. You have a powerful voice in the society. And I'm reiterating, do not say anything casually which is not substantiated. I mean, as a practitioner of modern medicine, best not to advise somebody on use of an alternative medicine without a disclaimer. If you say that, if you write something saying that I am not an expert in this field, however, because you were asked for my view, my personal view as an individual and not as an expert is so and so, then perhaps it is fine because you provided a disclaimer that this is not an area of your expertise. But by and large, stick to your areas of expertise. Always provide a conflict of interest and a disclaimer, as I said. Today, the exceptions apply because the National Medical Council or the MCI, it allows you to share prescriptions, but by and large, it is best not to share prescriptions. And then anything that you're sharing on social media, I feel that it is best to pass it through this 3x3 test. And this is a test of asking yourself, whatever I am sharing, is there a purpose of it? Does it serve a purpose of being useful to either to myself, to my patient, or the organization whom I'm working for, or the society? Can it be hurtful or harmful? Would you like it to be done to yourself? If the answers to these three questions is not in a positive way, I mean, the answer is not positive. Is it going to be useful? Only if it is useful, you would share. Only if it is not harmful or hurtful, you would share. Only if you do not mind doing that thing being done to yourself, then you can share. And similarly, you test for appropriateness of the content of what you're sharing. Is it legal? Is it ethical? Is it medically correct? Only when you find that it is indeed legal, it is indeed ethical to share such a thing, and medically it is not incorrect, then you may share, otherwise you must not. So social media is a difficult and rather dangerous platform. The benefits are immense, but so are the responsibilities. You, as a doctor, as a clinician, you have to be cognizant of this very fine balance between the benefits and responsibilities, and be careful while using social media. So that was all relating the administrative use and patient care use of social media. Now, coming to the last bit, that is the verbal communication in official or administrative capacity. Official communication, in our day-to-day work, we speak to various people, our colleagues, our superiors, our juniors, subordinates. All of it, though it is not recorded in majority of cases, is indeed official. You will have to own up whatever you spoke. And God forbid, if there's a major dispute, you may have to substantiate whatever you spoke on a certain occasion at a certain time. For example, in a meeting, meetings are recorded not by voice recording, but by minutizing. So if you were part of a meeting, even for that matter, say, let me take an example of a tumor board. You have sat through a multidisciplinary tumor board, and you provided some opinion regarding patient's care, and that is recorded in the tumor board's proceedings. It can be, you can be asked for an explanation, or if the advice that you gave, even verbally, was not a very sound one, you would be held accountable for it. So even verbal and telephonic conversations are official correspondence or communication. So you do not take any of these lightly. Be very careful in how and what you speak. If you are not happy with something, you may have all the right reasons to be angry or not happy with something. Yet, in official capacity in your workplace, there is no scope for being abusive or being distasteful or in saying anything which is unparliamentary. So please be careful in what you speak, and face-to-face with somebody in a meeting or even on telephone. Today, unfortunately, there's a great risk of your voice being recorded knowingly or unknowingly. Of course, the law of the land is that if you want to record something, or you want to do a voice recording of a meeting or any conversation, you have to provide this information to the persons involved, and you have to take permission to record the voice of the person you are recording. But so often we find, even while you are seeing a patient in the OPD, sometimes, or I've had a number of occasions when I found the patient or one of the relatives were recording whatever conversation we were having. So do not consider any communication totally innocuous. If you are, for example, telling the patient about possible outcomes of a treatment, be careful. Be very sure of what you are speaking is correct, what you are speaking is scientific, and not anything which you cannot substantiate or cannot explain later on. So it is important that you be aware of all these facts. So just going quickly through some other forms of official correspondence. You may have to give medical certificates to the patients. That too is an official correspondence. And yet, again, this is your own responsibility. Whatever you write in a medical certificate, you would have to own up forever, because these are like documented for posterity. Same way, you may have to provide discharge summaries or medical reports. Again, these are official correspondences. These are again, you are always required to own up this correspondence, and so be careful in what you write in all such correspondences, including on email, on social media, and verbally. So that is all that I wanted to talk about in terms of what all forms of official correspondence, official communication we can do. If there are any questions or even comments, I'll be happy to address them.